My mom said over the phone, "You're not in this family anymore. Stay gone." I said, "Okay." Then I pulled my name from the home equity loan, locked the backup account, and cut the property tax payments. At 7 a.m., my dad called me, breathless. "Why is the county threatening foreclosure?" I just ignored him. Then at 9 a.m., he came with, I never thought I'd hear those words come out of my mother's mouth. It was so casual. The call lasted under 15 seconds, but that moment split something inside me that I knew wasn't going to get put back together. I didn't expect that from her, especially knowing my dad would support her no matter what. That's the thing that really burned. He never challenged her. Even when she went too far, even when she was clearly being cruel, he'd just sit there in the background and nod. Sometimes I wondered if he even had his own thoughts anymore. I'd always known they treated me differently than my sister Lana, but now it wasn't subtle anymore. It was official. I was cut off. Except they forgot one thing. They weren't the only ones who could cut. That night, I sat at my laptop and made a checklist. Not emotional, just practical. I'd been carrying them financially for years, but it had become so routine I barely thought about it. Their name was on the house, but it was my paycheck keeping the lights on. First thing I did was pull my name from the home equity loan. I called the bank, got the paperwork moving, and by the time I logged off, my liability was zero. Then I locked the backup account. It was something I'd set up after Dad's medical scare 2 years ago. They were supposed to use it for emergencies. I don't know what counted as an emergency in their heads, but there were Uber Eats charges in there. Finally, I went into the county tax portal and canceled the property tax auto pay. They wouldn't notice until the first warning letter came, but that wasn't my problem anymore. I went to bed without a second thought. At 7 a.m., my phone started ringing. I let it buzz until voicemail picked up. It was, "Dad, why is the county threatening foreclosure? What did you do? You can't just..." Deleted the message. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started my workday like it was any other Wednesday. At 9 a.m., someone knocked on my door hard. I looked through the peephole and nearly laughed. My dad was standing there looking irritated and confused, like someone had just told him the sky wasn't blue. And standing next to him, of all people, was Rachel, my ex. We hadn't spoken in 8 months. She moved out without drama. We weren't a disaster. Just didn't work out. So seeing her here next to my dad with that same old worried expression on her face, I opened the door but didn't say anything. Dad started talking immediately, going off about how everything was being blown out of proportion, how Mom just said things in the heat of the moment. Rachel stood there quietly like she'd been coached. I looked at her. "What are you doing here?" She blinked like she didn't expect me to ask so directly, said something about how she still cared, how she just wanted to make sure I was okay. She tried to sound neutral, but I wasn't buying it. I stared at both of them for a second, then something clicked. He brought her to sway me. He thought if Rachel, my soft spot, showed up at my door, I'd cave. I'd fall back into the role, the helpful daughter, the reliable one, the one they could bleed dry and blame when things didn't go their way. I didn't say another word. I stepped aside, pointed out the hallway, and told them to leave. Rachel looked like she wanted to explain herself, but she didn't. My dad looked like he was ready to argue, but he didn't either. They left, and I locked the door. I'd been patient with them my whole life, tolerated things that most people wouldn't. I thought if I was just good enough, just helpful enough, they'd finally treat me with some respect. But now I was done playing the good daughter. And this was just the beginning. The first 2 days after they came to my door were dead silent. No texts, no calls, nothing. It felt like the quiet right before a bad storm. I've seen them play this game before, ignore the problem until they can't anymore, then come crawling back like they were the victims. Sure enough, day 3, the text from Mom arrived. Just one line. "You need to grow up and stop acting like a child." I didn't reply. I stared at it for a second, then deleted it. An hour later came another one. "Your behavior is hurting this family." It would have been almost funny if it wasn't so familiar. That was always the script. It didn't matter what they did. I was the one tearing the family apart if I didn't just swallow it and keep the peace. Later that night, Dad tried calling again. No voicemail this time. Just a missed call notification. Then another. Then another. I muted the number. The next morning, I got a security alert from the bank. Attempted access to the backup account. They were trying to move money out, not even bothering to ask, just straight to pulling. They didn't know I'd already locked it down and removed their authorization. I sat back in my chair and laughed once, quiet, bitter. They still thought they had reach. I logged in again, and this time I didn't just lock the account. I closed it, emptied the whole thing into my primary. That money was mine anyway. I'd put it there for them. For when Dad's health was uncertain and Mom was between jobs, not so they could quietly drain it behind my back. I didn't even bother telling them. Let them find out the hard way. That evening around 10 and twalk, I got a message from Lana. Just seeing her name light up my phone was enough to make my stomach twist. We got along mostly because I never called her out for anything. She always knew how to stay neutral, safe, silent. Her text said, "Hey, just wanted to see how you're doing. Everything okay with Mom and Dad?" I didn't answer right away. A few minutes later, another one came in. I talked to Dad. He said things got tense between you all. I don't want to pry, but maybe I can help. That was when it clicked. They were out of options. They were losing their grip, and now they were sending Lana to smooth things over. The peacekeeper, the one who never picked a side, until now. I called her. She answered quickly, like she'd been waiting by the phone. She asked how I was, said she was just concerned. I asked her one thing. "Did Dad tell you to call me?" There was a long silence. "Yeah," she said eventually. "He's freaking out about the house. I guess the county sent something. He said you took your name off the loan, that you're not helping anymore." I didn't respond. She kept talking. "He's really stressed, Selena. Mom's not handling it well either. Maybe if you just—" I cut her off. "Are you asking me to fix it again?" Another pause. "No, I'm just saying maybe this isn't worth all the drama. I mean, you know how they are." Yeah, I did. That was the problem. I reminded her gently that she still owed me 1-800. She went quiet again. I told her I wasn't trying to pull her into anything, but I wasn't going back to the way things were. Not again. She finally said it. "I can't afford to upset you right now. I'm staying out of it." That was the smartest thing she could have said, for both of us. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, thinking about all the years I bent over backward to make sure they were okay. How I worked overtime just to cover their mortgage shortfall one winter. How I canceled a trip with friends to send them money when the car broke down. How I never once asked for a thank you. And now, the first time I said no, I was disowned. Fine. Let them see what life looks like without me playing safety net. Let the late notices pile up. Let the interest climb. I didn't burn the bridge. They blew it up and handed me the match. And I wasn't finished yet. By the end of the week, the panic was starting to seep through. The first real sign was the voicemail I got from Dad late Friday night. He was trying not to sound desperate, but you could hear it in the way his voice cracked halfway through. "We're just asking for a little help until things stabilize. You're still part of this family, Selena, whether you like it or not." That last part, "whether you like it or not," made me shake my head. It was always like that. They'd insult you, exile you, and then act like you were the one who misunderstood. There was never an apology. Just this weird expectation that I'd forget everything and fall back in line. I didn't respond. On Sunday morning, I took it another step further. The power bill and internet for their house had been set up under my name back when they were behind on payments. It was supposed to be temporary, just to help them get caught up. That was over a year ago. I logged in, removed their address, and closed the accounts, sent the final bills to my email, paid them off, and shut it down clean. An hour later, I got a text from my mom. "Why isn't the Wi-Fi working?" I ignored it. Then another. "We lost power for 2 hours today. What's going on?" Still nothing from me. By the afternoon, I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail, then checked them in a batch. One was a utilities rep. One was someone from their church, someone I hadn't heard from in years. The last one, though, was Rachel. I almost didn't listen to it, but curiosity won. She sounded nervous. She said she didn't want to get involved, but that my mom had called her crying, saying I was trying to destroy them. She asked if I was okay, if there was anything she could do. I deleted it. I didn't need anyone trying to guilt-trip me on their behalf. Not someone who had walked away from me when things got hard between us, only to show up at my front door weeks ago, uninvited and clearly being used. Monday morning, I got another call from Dad. This time, he left a very different kind of message. "Fine. If you're going to turn your back on us, then at least give us some notice next time. We're scrambling over here." That was the tone I'd been waiting for. The shift from arrogant to cornered. It always came eventually. I went through the shared insurance policy next. When Mom got dropped from her work coverage, I put her on my plan. I never told anyone that I paid the premiums in full every month. It was just easier than having the conversation. She hadn't even said thank you. Now she was off it. I got the confirmation email 2 days later. Her coverage would end by the 1st of the month. I didn't warn them. Let them figure it out. Lana texted me again that evening, just a single question. Did you take Mom off your health insurance? I replied, yeah. She didn't respond. That silence meant she finally got it. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about boundaries. This was about letting them feel the consequences they had avoided for too long because I kept stepping in. They weren't losing me. They gave me away. By Wednesday, the silence was shattered, but not in the way I expected. That morning, I left for work like normal. When I got home, there was an envelope taped to my front door, not mailed, just stuck there with a piece of worn tape, like some passive-aggressive note left on the windshield. My name was written in blue ink. I knew the handwriting immediately. My mother. I stood in the hallway for a full minute before taking it down. Inside were 6 pages, handwritten both sides. It wasn't neat. It looked like she wrote it all in one sitting, too fast. Like the words were boiling over and she had to get them out before they evaporated. It wasn't an apology. She wrote about how disappointed they were in me, how family doesn't abandon each other, that I'd thrown everything away over some petty grudge. She said I was acting like a stranger, not a daughter. She actually wrote that I was erasing the blood that connected us. The last line was, "What did it, though? You're going to regret this when we're gone." I read it twice, then dropped it straight into the trash. No second thoughts. They had no idea what regret even looked like. The next day, I got a notice from the mortgage lender. It wasn't a late payment reminder. It was worse. The most recent payment had bounced. There was a bright red line that read, "Insufficient funds." Since I'd already pulled my name from the loan, I wasn't on the hook. But because they never changed the contact info, the warning still came to me. It made me wonder what else they were going to forget to update. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, while I was trying to focus on work, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. A few minutes later, it buzzed again. Same number. On the third try, I picked up just to stop the noise. It was Anne-Marie, my dad's older sister. She lived in Arizona, barely kept in touch with the rest of the family. I hadn't heard her voice in 5, maybe 6 years. She didn't bother with small talk. "Your parents called me." I didn't answer. She said they were panicking about the house, told her I'd gone cold, that I'd left them high and dry out of nowhere. I waited for her to ask me what happened, to ask for my side, but she didn't. Instead, she said this, "You did more for them than anyone ever should have. Let them figure it out themselves." I was stunned. She went on, said she'd always suspected they were taking advantage of me. That when Dad used to brag about how I helped out with their bills, she could tell there was more to the story, that he sounded too proud of something he didn't earn. Then she said something that stuck with me. "You can't teach people consequences if you keep cushioning their falls." After we hung up, I just sat there for a while. It was the first time in years someone in the family had acknowledged what was actually going on, not just tolerated it, not just told me to keep the peace. That same night, something else happened. Something I wasn't ready for. Rachel texted. It was short. "I need to tell you something. It's about your dad." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure I even wanted to know, but curiosity chipped away at me until I gave in and told her to go ahead. She sent a wall of text. She said that when Dad asked her to come with him that day, she said no at first, but then he offered her something. He told her he'd pay her back the money he owed from that failed startup idea he convinced her to invest in, the money she lost after our breakup when she was still trying to stay civil with the family. He told her if she could convince me to reverse the financial cutoffs, he'd make it right. She didn't take the money, but she went anyway. I just stared at the screen. So that whole day, the visit, her fake concern, the awkward silence, was just a setup. Another ploy. Another transaction in disguise. I didn't text her back. I didn't ask follow-up questions. I just blocked her number and deleted the thread. It wasn't even anger at that point. It was this deep, exhausted clarity, like I'd been squinting through fog for years, and suddenly everything snapped into focus. They didn't love me the way family should. They loved what I could do for them. Now that I was done, they were scrambling, falling apart, making bad choices, pulling people into the mess, and I was finally watching it happen from the outside. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I needed to be free. By the end of that week, the walls were caving in on them. Friday morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls and 2 voicemails from Dad. One of them was just breathing, like he didn't know what to say. The second was quieter, not angry, just empty. "Selena, the county sent a letter. They're giving us 30 days. 30. I need to talk to you." I stared at my screen for a while, wondering if he even remembered telling me I wasn't part of the family anymore. If he realized what kind of person you have to be to say that to your daughter and still come back asking for help. I didn't call back. Instead, I logged in and made sure all remaining ties were cut. There was one last link I hadn't touched yet, something small, but still tethered to them. The shared Amazon account. It had my card saved. I scrolled through the order history, vitamins, cleaning supplies, a Bluetooth speaker, all of it shipped to them. I deleted the card, changed the password, and logged out. A few hours later, I got a text from Lana. Mom tried to order something, but the payment failed. What's going on? I wrote back, ask her. She didn't reply. That weekend, I went out of town. Not to avoid them, just to clear my head. I turned off my phone, booked a small Airbnb upstate, and spent 2 days doing nothing but walking, reading, and sleeping. The first night, I sat outside with a drink in my hand and realized it was the first time I hadn't thought about them in hours. It felt like breathing without a weight on my chest. When I got back, the messages had piled up. Not from Mom or Dad, but from people around them, neighbors, old family friends, even someone from their church. Apparently, my parents had started telling people I'd abandoned them, and now everyone wanted to hear my side. I ignored all of them. Let them spin whatever version they wanted. I didn't owe anyone a statement. Then something strange happened. They stopped reaching out for an entire week. Not a single call, no texts, no letters, nothing. I thought maybe they had finally given up, but then Lana called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She sounded different, tired. They're selling the car, she said. They're thinking about taking a loan from the credit union just to cover the missed property taxes. I asked her why she was telling me that. She said, I think they finally get it. I asked her if they mentioned me at all. She said, no, not once, not even your name. That part hit harder than I thought it would. Not because I wanted the apology, but because after everything, after all the yelling and letters and manipulations, it ended not with a fight, but with a silence so complete it felt surgical. They'd cut me out as cleanly as they told me to leave. But they were finally, for the first time in their lives, handling their own problems, selling things, talking to banks, doing the work. That night, I sat in my living room and just listened to the quiet. No phone buzzing, no guilt rising up, no more wondering if I was doing the right thing. I already had. They hadn't said sorry. They never would. And I didn't need them to. 3 weeks passed. No texts, no voicemails, no letters, just silence. For a while, I kept expecting another wave of manipulation, a guilt trip through Lana, a surprise knock on my door, some new dramatic attempt to rope me back in. But it never came. Instead, what I got was something entirely new from my parents. Indifference. It was subtle at first. A neighbor of theirs, someone I barely remembered from childhood, messaged me on Facebook with a random update. Your folks seem busy these days. Saw them painting the front porch. Looks like they're trying to fix up the place. I didn't know what to make of it. Fixing the porch. They never did things like that themselves. They always waited until something broke completely, then begged someone, usually me, to handle it. Then Lana confirmed it. They'd been selling furniture. Mom picked up a part-time job at the Flores down the road. Dad's been doing repair work for some guy he used to know from high school. I asked if they were still talking about me. She said they hadn't mentioned me at all. That stung more than I expected, but it also meant something had finally changed. They'd stopped expecting me to rescue them, stopped spinning lies, stopped using other people to try to break through my boundaries. For the first time in my life, they were dealing with their own problems. And I wasn't part of the story anymore. One night, I drove past the old house just to see it. I didn't get out of the car, just sat at the corner with the headlights off and watched from across the street. The yard was cleaner. The gutters looked new. The porch had a fresh coat of paint. There was a for sale by owner sign in the grass, a small one, tucked low, quiet. They were letting go, and so was I. On the way back home, I stopped at a diner I used to go to in high school. I hadn't been there in years. Sat alone in a booth, ordered coffee, and stared at the Formica table, wondering how long I'd been trying to earn something from them that was never mine to begin with. Their approval, their respect, a real place in the family. They told me I wasn't part of it anymore, and maybe for the first time I believed them. But instead of pain, I felt something else. Relief. They weren't my responsibility. They never were. And now, finally, they knew it too. No closure, no apology, just an ending. And that was enough. A month went by without a single word from them. I didn't text Lana. I didn't drive by the house. I didn't wonder what they were doing. And that in itself was new. For the first time in my life, I wasn't orbiting them anymore. No guilt, no worry, no invisible leash tying me to their decisions. I was just living my life. Then, one Thursday evening, I got an email from the county clerk's office. I almost ignored it. Thought it was spam at first, but it had my full name in the subject line. I clicked it out of reflex. It was a deed transfer. The house was gone. I opened the attached document and read it 3 times. No agent listed, no realtor involved, just a clean, direct sale. The buyer, some faceless LLC that specialized in distressed properties. I Googled them. They flipped houses for quick profit, paid in cash, moved fast. My parents had taken a huge loss. Attached was a second document, a retroactive release form from the old backup account I'd shut down, signed and filed with the date I cut them off. They'd gone back, cleaned up the paper trail, removed my name from everything like I'd never existed in their financial world. I didn't know if they did it to avoid future problems or if it was their final attempt to make the split permanent. Either way, it worked. It was over. I closed the documents, leaned back, and just sat there for a while. Not relieved, not angry, just still. Like someone had finally turned off a machine that had been humming in the background my entire life. Later that night, I felt that same old curiosity creeping back. I searched my dad's name. Nothing new, no lawsuits, no liens. Then I typed in my mom's. That's when I saw it. 2 weeks earlier, she'd filed a business registration. A shop. Flowers and vintage goods. I clicked the link and stared at the name, Vera and Vine. I hadn't heard Vera in years. Her grandmother's name, a name she never used. It felt like something deeply hers, something she hadn't shared with anyone in a long time. The address was on the east side of town. That weekend, I drove over. Just once. Not to talk. Not to confront. Just to see. I parked across the street, windows up. She was inside talking to a customer. She looked calm. There were potted plants in the window, old books on a shelf, some kind of handmade soaps laid out in a wire basket. She was smiling. And somehow it didn't feel like a betrayal. It felt like watching someone I used to know from far away, like seeing an old teacher, or someone you once shared a life with in a different timeline. That night, I got a text from Lana. Just wanted to say thanks for not pulling me into it deeper. I'm finally catching up on what I owe you. You'll see it soon. Nothing about our parents, no updates, no guilt. 3 days later, I checked my account and saw it. 10,800s, transferred in full. She didn't say anything else. I didn't either. It wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant. Everyone had taken their piece of the fallout and moved on. No one said sorry. No one asked for a second chance. There was no reconciliation, no tearful reunion. Just a slow, clean drift. And that's exactly what I needed. After all these years, I wasn't the problem solver anymore. I wasn't the bank. I wasn't the background support for someone else's life. I was out, and I wasn't going back. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from them, not even through Lana, not through the church, not through vague family connections trying to play mediator. It was just nothing. The kind of silence you only get after something truly ends. And I realized this was the life I used to think I'd have to fight for. A life where I didn't have to be the fixer, the buffer, the unpaid accountant holding everyone together with late-night transfers and polite silence. I wasn't worried about their mortgage. I wasn't fielding calls from utility companies. I wasn't checking my phone every hour, waiting for the next emotional ambush. Instead, I was living on my own schedule, cooking for myself, reading again, breathing differently, and maybe most surprising of all, I wasn't bitter. That shocked me, because for a long time I thought I would be. But I wasn't holding on to what they did anymore. I wasn't measuring my worth by how much I gave. I wasn't chasing their love in the form of usefulness. They had told me what I was to them, expendable, replaceable, a line on a bank statement, and I finally believed them. That belief set me free. I started reconnecting with people I'd pulled away from, not because I wanted to tell the story, but because I didn't need to hide it anymore. It had happened, and it was over. Sometimes people would ask, "Do you talk to your parents?" And I'd just say, "No, we're not close." And that was it. No explanation, no shame. There was a time when I thought I couldn't live without their approval. Now I was living better because of its absence. One evening, I ran into someone who used to be close with my mom, a neighbor from our old street. She didn't bring up the fallout, just said, "Your mom's shop is cute. She's been there a lot lately." I smiled, nodded, thanked her, and walked away. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to know anything else. A few days later, I got a package, no return address. Inside was a vintage notebook, the kind I used to love as a teenager. Tucked inside was a single pressed flower, white camellia. In the language of flowers, it means, "My destiny is in your hands." There was no note, no name, but I knew it was from her. I held it for a long time. And then I put it on a shelf, beautiful, quiet, and untouched. It wasn't a door reopening, it wasn't an apology. It was just a gesture, and that was enough. Because now I wasn't waiting for healing to come from someone else. I wasn't asking for recognition from people who only valued what I could give. I had already done the work. I had already built the boundary. I had already walked away. And for the first time in my life, the only person I was responsible for was me.